Peace in Islam. Let's continue part 4 of Carthago America. Spain was one of the chief seats of Phoenician colonization, and if we unite there with the northwest of Africa, we shall have some idea of the greatness of the power of Tyre in these parts, where Tyre is reported to have founded no fewer than 300 cities on the western coast of Africa. So you see, in us they recognizing these ports and these trade sites, and 200 in southwestern Spain. And there's a lot more on the other side, but they ain't gonna mention that. Here then we found the chief objects of the Phoenician sea trade. These countries went to Tyre, while Peru was to Spain. So we're showing the last video the heat map. Alright, the heat map showing you the coastline, the rivers, the major Nile, our great river. Another one, that's the Mississippi. We can see this ancient map of the ancient pyramid civilization, prehistoric communities. We can see right up and down the Mississippi where you got the most. Then you got the East Coast. You got up in the Great Lakes area. You see where we had a lot of ancient walls up here for the copper and tin mines. And a lot of the captains get sent down the Mississippi out into the other areas, Chickasaw County and stuff. Like, let's see. But you can see you got some empires out west. You really got the mountains and all this area clear. Same thing in modern times, wherever we at, those kingdoms still exist. So in this video, we'll be going backwards and forwards, and just connecting the same thing, showing you that this kingdom do exist even to this day. Hold on for a second. So we see right here in this old book they're looking at this area we call the merchant scales. We're gonna look into that today. The merchant scales, where you got the city states up and down the river, the ways to come and have the markets of the world. But you got they say the names is Hebrewic, and they show you Kadesh and a couple of other names, the Marcia, Tegua, hard to see, but bridge there. We're gonna look at that today, this river way. And also we gotta keep in mind that the world is broken down like this in zones based off climate. Climates overlap, but this is a way that you can be able to see it a little easier when you read history. You'll be able to see a lot of the mishaps that we make because we forget that the world be like this. So that red part will be Africa, and that yellow part would be Morocco, or the Holy Lands, Canaan, Carthage, Mediterranean, Middle Earth. Even at the bottom part, you still gonna have the same things. Now, some parts of this was India. The green part is Asia or Europe. And the dark green part, that's the Nordic zone. So we got Carthage, Numidia, Ethiopia, Mauritania. Basically the whole continent, but this is what we got record of. That came out of this, which is what we see at the beginning, Tyre and the city-states that they set up on the coast of Africa. We see these little dots. Those where they set up at on this side. The Hesperides, remember that? And Cape Nam. You see Hannibal, his brother came. He already been the kingdom of Tarsus when they came, Carthaginian, in the narrative. Right, because they people already over here from a much earlier empire. Let me see Portuguese squares approximately in the first half of the 1500s. We got the Mine, Mina, Artagram, Mesa, where they have vassalage of, and Santa Cruz and the Safi. At the same time, earlier, 1480, that's before 1492, we got the Mandan Kurufaba Mali Empire, which got trades. Same thing as you see the Portuguese and Spain got, they just don't talk about them. They talk about them as African, West African slave Muslims. But when you tell your own story, it makes sense, and you keep your status properly. You don't fall into a Roman slave status. And there's just estimates. This empire is all over the world, just like the rest of them. Let me see an example. One of the merchant skills, the same river at the beginning of the merchant skills, would show rulership of it, because those the best spots at the beginning. You want to put a port and dictate who coming through to buy and sell, and you dictate who's selling inside from the mouth of the merchant scale. You know, it's a West African term, saint. We're gonna look at that later. Saints, the name of saints is the name of the ships they used to come and buy, and they used to have the spot where they buy under the name, and that's one thing they forget to change. Those names. That's why we got a saint everything everywhere over here, because that's the Holy Roman Empire coming to buy, which is Europe. So we see Africa also connected with this trade. They got their own chips too. It's a merchant scale. Let me see, in the ancient world, we'll be showing you in the walls. All is under the empire of ancient Egypt. But that's what we're dealing with. This could be important later because we can find all these languages in America. You see the cross. They're using it as an instrument. Staying out their travels. You see the entire coast of Africa. They already know that. You see the crosses. Another cross. And you see how they overlap. You got Asia or Indies. You got Equator, you got Africa, and you got the land of Moors, Barbaria, land of Moors. And just again, Africa settled in the middle. But you see the overlaps and different things being called different things. Even though they might be in a different zone, they still connect that climate based off climate to place names and weather. But you can see the extent of the rivers and this merchant scales going all the way to Peru. We're gonna see this to Morocco that Don Sabastian wanted to be the emperor of the world. That's the place that they wanted, this area, because all the world used to come through here to get what they need. So we see the kingdom of Morocco and Fez, Marmora, Al-Rachi, Mazagan, and then at Cumana. They say Cumana is one of the first cities founded by Europeans. They wanted the Marmora. So we see Europe dealing with this. Remember, this been Carthago, Numidia earlier became the kingdom of Fez in Morocco. And then we see the kingdom of Granada. So we see the city of the Nazarenes. And that's what we're about to deal with. Don Sabastian. You see that right there. So I'm telling you what it is. We ain't gonna read all of this. But what it's showing you is ancient Roman Carthage and you see in America at times. We shouldn't be. It shouldn't be. Should not be. The city of the Nazarene. The Tsar. So we see Don Sabastian, what they call Saint Sebastian in that area. He was the son of John Manuel, Prince of Portugal, and his wife, Joanna of Austria. He was grandson of the King John III of Portugal and Holy Roman Emperor Charles V. So we're going to talk about a lot of those characters before. Now we're gonna see how deep he get. He disappeared, presumably killed in action in the Battle of Alcacer against the Saadins of Morocco. Very important. Sabastian I is often referred to as the desired or the asleep, as the Portuguese people longed for his return to end the decline of the Portugal that began after his death. So, become legendary. A lot of myth and stuff come out of the story because they don't want to put them in America. But we're going to show you how they keep sneaking them in there because they can't really get away from putting them here. And we can see Don Sebastian, the fort of Saint Sebastian, which that's who they talking about. You see the Sebastian Signa, and you can tell how they draw the natives of Florida in the old books in Spanish and Portuguese books, right? Drawn just like this right here, right? So even on the shield they show you that. Remember about the key, where they say they're making these keys in the Indies for forts over here. And one of them called the Alcazaba de Salé. And of course he got the Moors on his shield, because he dealing in the land of Moors. This is the beginning of the world trade for Portugal. Not the beginnings, but some of the beginnings that they're getting rid of because connected to the land of Moors. Don Sebastian de Norillo. And you see, he fighting Moors. All allegorical. Books Alcacer. Let me see. And we'll point out some of the parts where they sneak America in. The same year he was rewarded Indians in Brazil, which the vassalage that they give Manuel the First, who helped to fight against the French. The chief of the Terminos Indians, Arari Boya, was given lands near the Bay of Guanabara, so it's the ancient Ghana, in 1569. Remember that date. Sebastian ordered Duarte Nuez de Leon to compile all the laws and legal documents of the kingdom, a collection of leyes extravagantes known as the Código Sebastianico, Sebastian's Code. You're talking about plagues and stuff too, but what's important is he got allies in Brazil, and they native Moors who native to this area that we just finished dealing with his name still there. And watch what they say. In 1572, the poet Luis de Camões, probably from that area too, presented his masterpiece Os Lusíadas and dedicated a poem to Sebastian that won him a royal pension. 1573, he commissioned the construction of the Royal Basilica. Remember we look at Magnus Leptis. Yeah, these basilicas in the city. And Castro Verde as a tribute to the Battle of Orique, which is look like the word gold. In 1575, he was the Carta de Ley de Almerim. The king established a system of measures for solid and liquid products, and also defined the role of public servants. So let's go. His last projects. So you see 1568. 1569 he battling in Brazil against the French with King Ariboi, and a year before they want you to believe after attaining his majority in 1568, Sabastian dreamed of the Great Crusade against the Kingdom of Morocco, where over the preceding generation several Portuguese way stationed on the route to India had been lost. And what they talking about is this. That's what he been dreaming of. And that's why we see. That's what he wanted. That's why we see the fort of Saint Sabastian right at the mouth of it. And why they give you, well, they should know themselves, like, that's what he dreamed about a year before, and now he taking action. A Moroccan secession struggle gave him the opportunity when Abu Abdallah Muhammad II Sadi lost the throne in 1576 and fled to Portugal. After arriving, he asked for the King Sebastian's assistance in defeating his Turkish-backed uncle and rival Abu Marwan Abd al-Malik I Sa'adi. So you know these Carthaginian and Phoenician type names. We're going to look at that later. During the Christmas tide of 1577, Sabastian met with his uncle King Philip II of Spain at Guadalupe. Philip refused to be a party to the crusade as he was negotiating a truce with the Ottoman Empire, though he promised a contingent of Spanish volunteers. About to play him though. Despite his lack of a son and heir, King Sabastian embarked on his crusade in 1578. Coming to America, the Portuguese army of 17,000 men, including a significant number of foreign mercenaries hired from the Holy Roman Empire. See what I'm saying? So even in 1500, you still got Rome and Carthage, but you got to fight in South America and North. But me only can tell you what a record is showing. I could talk to you all day and I'll show you nothing about what I believe going on, but that's just my belief. Still be going with the record saying. The Netherlands, Spain, and the Italian states, see what I'm saying, all of Europe was Rome at this time, the dominions of Rome. And almost all the country's nobility sailed at the beginning of June from Lisbon. They visited Cadiz, where they expected to find the Spanish volunteers who failed to appear, but then they crossed into Morocco. And Morocco, quote unquote. Death in battle at Arzila, Sabastian joined his ally Abu Abdallah Muhammad II, who had around 6,000 mortal soldiers, and against the advice of his commanders, marching to the interior. So you're talking about the interior of Brazil. You gotta understand that's all Portuguese history really consists of, because they ain't been called Portugal for that long. Once they become Portugal, the whole history started with them trying to deal with America and Brazil. It take them centuries just to even be able to claim Brazil. So they've been doing a lot of getting into the interior, getting inside these rivers, trying to get inside, see what's going on, what's behind that river that goes deep into the interior. So at the Battle of Alcacer-Quibir, Battle of the Three Kings, the Portuguese army was routed by Abd al-Malik at the head of more than 60,000 men. So when we've been together as Moors, we could have put armies of 60,000 men against Rome. So basically, that's the reason why Rome wants you to be divided into different sections of yourself with different names. If you don't know how to put together in one, you're going to be divided. Like we're doing this video, we're putting everything in one, showing you this empire going back. It's the Punic Wars, and then the wars between Moors and Christians, and then now Sabastian was almost certainly killed in battle. He was last seen riding headlong into the enemy lines. Whether his body was ever found was uncertain, but Philip II of Spain claimed to be who had received his remains from Morocco and buried them in the Geronimo's monastery in Belém, Lisbon, after he ascended to the Portuguese throne in 1580. You said they got the same names like in Brazil, Belém. The body could not be identified as Sabastian's, however, was left some people unconvinced of his death. Sabastian was succeeded as king by his great uncle Henry, brother of his grandfather John III. According to Tammany courts, he was not a remarkable and wise monarch. Rather, he was immature and headstrong youth. His insistence on continuing the Reconquista, and they're gonna put in quotes and try to tell you what that is. The Christian reconquest of the Iberia from its Islamic rulers. So you can see that Portugal already been well established in Iberia for the most part. So they gotta have something else they trying to conquer. So they want to continue. He wanted to continue into Morocco, led not only to his death, but ultimately the end of the House of Abbas. Because the House of Habsburg been for him sick, and he lick him so you could have men for him, and he ain't saying his men. He already know what's up, and he probably already been dealing with Moors on the side who been his allies, and tell them not to get involved. Stuff like that going on in the background at all times. In the long term, many myths and legends about Sabastian appeared. The principal one being that he was a great Portuguese patriot, the sleeping king who returned the Portuguese in the darkest hours, similar to King Arthur and Frederick Barbarossa and Byzantine Constantine the Paleologos. So we got different names and legends for him. And you see, even late as the 19th century, Sebastianists, peasants in the town of Canudos and where Brazil. So even if they got the rituals, they still ain't putting two or two together that's the Morocco that he dealt with. He ain't dealt with Brazil. He ain't had a dream of dealing with Brazil, so he in Brazil. But at that time, to him, it's a Morocco. That's just evidence of that fact. And you see they still have rituals. All the Moors and Christians, you see with the do-rag. I'll show you how we still with a do-rag like that in North America. And that's what they remember. Still in Brazil. And even stuff like this in 1629, departed from Salé with the fleet composed of ships, the Corn, St. Louis, the Griffin, the Catherine, the Hamburg, the St. Anna, and the St. John, which I can show you. I find all those spots where these ships been coming to have business at. He bombarded the city of Salé, destroyed 3 corsair ships, and then sent the Griffin and the captain, Trelebois, to Mogador. The men of Rizili saw the fortress of Castelo Real in Mogador and landed 100 men with wood and supplies on Mogador Island. So they ain't gonna say the Brazil wood because it's supposed to be on the other side. But they already mess up and they leave these ship names in there because they're gonna find the place names all over that same river way. And we see the French, Nicolau Razili. Remember, they've been fighting the French, the Portuguese, and the Moors. Even a bunch of mixed wars, even different entities coming out of many different things. You have Germans, like Hamburg, all this the Holy Roman Empire that we've been talking about. After a few days, however, the Griffin re-embarked the colonists and departed to rejoin the fleet in Salé. That's that fleet. But you see this later, still going on. You got business going on. So let's see. Anyway, you see already St. Louis at the mouth. You can see St. Louis. In Portugal, they're going to change everything to the Portuguese language to match up what they want you to believe. And they got a lot of sense, even some they don't name, but these are places where the Holy Roman Empire named the spot where they ship would arrive and buy. St. Louis, St. Miguel, Domingo, and you see some of them say of the power that also giving it away. That means they got a lot of these St. Isabel, but they're going to put some of them to say this one is of the power. They keep them remembering on their maps. Of the Capum and of the Guama, just to know where they're at. And I think that's Timbuktu, Timbuktu, New Timbuktu. And you see order, look like another word for gold. And you know, you see Nova. We know Villanova is all over this area and all over the world, really. But every time you see Villanova, that's an old Carthaginian port. They just, Carthage means new city, Villanova means new city. The same in a different way. See St. Catherine. And the Cabo Orange National Park. They keep the Cabo Orange name now. The National Park name now. But that's still showing us where other things at, which is the Sale, what we're talking about. Near the Cape Orange now, the Cape Orange National Park. And the new city of Fez. Arcilla. See they both cities like on the water with waterways that go all around the city into it. harbors. We can see again the entire continent of Africa. We find these same things going on. Ancient empire, and you see these hand gestures. We're gonna see about that a little later. We find the Jaguars on the other side, the Jaguar Kings. That's what they're talking about. These guys been all over. And you can see they coming from all over, bringing tribute. And we see this one right here look like the one they find in the Miles of America on the stone. Look just like with that earring, afro, head. So we see Carthage. You can see the Basilica, Basilique, French. You see the city structure showing you this because how the cities over here look too. Same type of things that make the city go. Try to keep this an hour or less. So now we see Africa. That's what Rome called all of they conquered Carthage. No matter what time period they in or where they at. Wherever time they conquer you, it's Africa to them. And we're going to see why. You see the Africa Port Consularis was a Roman province on the northern Africa coast that was established in 146 BC following the defeat of Carthage. You see? All based off that. And the Third Punic War. They try to tell you where they're at. But the territory was originally inhabited by the very people known in Latin as the Moors. Latin for Moors is martyri, plural. Indigenous to all of North Africa west of Egypt, which goes back to the Circle 7, which tells us we have permission to settle in those parts. And we came from the west and settled in those parts. Why you always see martyri at that northwestern corner on all the maps. You always see something to say martyri. Regardless of our other families who over there, we had ports because we had to deal with this trade. In the 9th century BC, Phoenicians built settlement along the coast to facilitate. So you see, what they talking about shipping trade, of which Carthage rose to dominance in the 8th century until the conquest of the Roman Republic. So we see. After Rome Empire in AD 125. And so we see how they look at it. You see Carthage right there, Rome right there. But you see how they got right here in the west and northwest, it's represented by Moors, Mari, and everything that northwest of that will take us to North America, really. But even at this time right here, most of Brazil, around all this area, still got the ports and the connections to those rivers. And they call all that down there the deserts of Africa. Let's get into a little bit more history. Rome's first province in North Africa was established by the Roman Republic in 146 BC following the elimination of Carthage by Scipio I Millennianus in the Third Punic War. Africa Proconsularis, or Africa Vetus, Old Africa was governed by a proconsul. It is possible that the name Africa comes from the Berber word Afar, Ifri, or Auriga that designated a tribe. So you just been the name of one of the tribes, and most likely one of the tribes that been working with them, vassalage, just like in parts of South America, the Mesa tribe. So you see why that even Rome been these Moors. So you see, that look like a crescent too. But you see, they call it phoenix in Greek. But you see the Carthaginian coin, palm tree. Palm tree, just like we see the South Carolina flag. And you see right here, they call them different things. And they call themselves Canaanite in books, Punic. Remember we talked about the Siculo and the Sardo. So like other Phoenician people, their urbanized culture and economy was strongly linked to the sea, overseas. Right? They're gonna tell you about their overseas prowess and all the stuff, but they gonna act like they ain't come this way. And we see the same things over here. Same type of structure, same type of technology. They established control over some coastal regions of Berber, Northwest Africa is and what is now Tunisia and Libya, as well as Sardinia, Sicily, Ebusus, Malta, and other small islands of the Western Mediterranean. And Sardinia and Sicily, see, they put the Western Mediterranean, they thinking they know what that is, because they read that in books. And we know, like the map we showed earlier, that the Mediterranean are the middle lands. It's just the middle lands of Earth going all the way around it. So all they doing is copying from books and not thinking that a Western Mediterranean could be Gulf of Mexico and Caribbeans. But anyway, in Sardinia and Sicily, they had strong economic and political ties out to the independent natives in the hinterland. It's all been the same people. Their naval presence and trade extended throughout the Mediterranean beyond to Atlantic, Iberia, the British Isles, and Canaries. So of course, everywhere except for the Western Hemisphere, right? But anyway, they always try to make them look like they running up on a bunch of natives around the world. Those are the people who, not everybody gonna be sea traveler. Your uncle might be one. Your two of your uncles, they travel seas. Your other uncles, they generals in the army. Another one of your uncle or aunt, they run shops on the land in the interior some way. But these family, they ain't foreign. So technical advancements, achievements of the Punic peoples of Carthage include the development of uncolored glass and the use of lacustrine limestone to improve the purity of iron. Most of the Punic culture was destroyed as a result of the Punic Wars fought between Rome and Carthage. And they put a date on that, but we don't put dates. It's still going on now. By traces of language, which we dealing with, religion, we dealing with that, and technology, that too, can still be found in Africa during early Christianization. Another date after the Punic Wars. Rome used the term Punic as an adjective meaning treacherous. So you see how they'll take even your names and use their perspective of it and write that in dictionaries too. But as you can see, everything that they've got or claim come off them fighting these people called Punic peoples and leeching. The Carthaginians carried out significant sea exploration around Africa and elsewhere from their base in Carthage. In the 1st century BC, Hannah the Navigator played a significant role in exploring coastal areas of present-day Morocco and other parts of African coast, swiftly noting details of indigenous peoples such as at Isora. Carthaginians pushed westwardly into the Atlantic and established important settlements in Lixus, Walubis, Chila, and Mogador, among other locations. So they tried to sneak that in. They pushed westwardly into the Atlantic. They eventually also fought Rome in the Punic Wars, but lost because they were limited in numbers and talented commanders. Had a misguided strategy in Hannibal's invasion of Italy and misjudged the strength of their navy, especially in the First Punic War. They were soundly defeated by Scipio Africanus in Africa in 202 BC that enabled Roman settlement of Africa and eventual domination of the Mediterranean Sea. But we're going to see the truth about this so-called defeat. Cato the Elder famously ended all speeches regardless of their subject. See what I'm saying? Regardless of their subject, he ended all his speeches with the imperative that Carthage be utterly crushed, and a view summarized in Latin by the phrase Praeterea sint censeo Carthaginem esse delendam, meaning, moreover I declare Carthage must be destroyed. And he mean always, not just that city. Anytime these Moors raise their head up as Carthaginians and not Romans, we're going to destroy them. And that's the basis of all the slavery, all the stuff that happened later in the Atlantic on both sides, and what's still going on. The destruction of Carthage was not the aim of the Carthaginians, obviously. After the wars, the city of Carthage was completely razed and the land around it was turned into farmland for Roman citizens. There were, however, Punic cities in northwest Africa, and Carthage itself was rebuilt and regained some importance of a shadow of its ancient influence. So we talk about Tunisia today. And how they started dealing with this. Say, although the area was partially Romanized, some of the population adopted the Roman religion while fusing it with aspects of their belief in religion. The language and ethnicity persisted for some time. So we're in history right now according to the narrative of Carthage, and we're gonna in the next video get into the evidence that we find all across the Americas that dealt with this side of the same history untold by these other people. People of Punic origin prospered again as traders, merchants. So these are the Moors that we get into the time of the Moorish Empire. That's what they're talking about. These people get this power and this knowledge from the earlier periods. These Moors, and we can see they supposedly win, but look what happened. You say even politicians of the Roman Empire. So even some of them going and been kings of Germany and Europe and Portugal and all that too. Septimus Severus, emperor of Rome and a proud Punic, was said to speak Latin with a Punic accent. Under his reign, Carthaginians rose to the elites and their deities into their imperial cult. So you see, even in America, where they expect us to be speaking Latin and pulling like Roman type things, that ain't really true. We still, the people are Punic. We just got like a kind of a mixed culture now after all these centuries. The Carthage was rebuilt about 46 BC by Julius Caesar, and settlements in the surrounding areas were granted to soldiers who had retired from the Roman army. Carthage would once again prosper and even became the number 2 trading city in the Roman Empire until Constantinople took over that position. So we following along, we see Granada, the fruit called Punica granatum. So we continue on showing you what happened to these so-called Punic peoples. We see Granada all over America. Let's look that up. And we see that's just mean Punica granatum. Let's see Granada, Nicaragua. A Mexico song, Colorado. A structure in Florida, Minnesota, and the Philippines. So you see all these connections to Carthage we find in America, not just under the name Carthage itself. That alone already exists under the English version. Missouri, Mississippi, Texas, Illinois, Tennessee, New York, North Carolina, Indiana, South Dakota, Maine, and then you go into the Latin version. Colombia, Carthago, Portugal. Costa Rica, California, and it's a lot of spellings because it just means new city. Let's see, Sudan. They're translating it for me. But it literally just means new city. I thought they would have tell me that it just means Villanova, or new city. So you got a lot of Villanovas too. Trying to hide it with using this version of new city. All over Italy. And got different spellings. So you see, this empire ain't hidden, it's in our face. We just gotta go back and learn how to read it again. And you see Rome with the same tactics they use against us in North America, where they owe us for unpaid labor, with these Roman ways, colony, all this ancient, but they still been using them we forget about it. And it comes from these sharecropping, lex manciniana, Roman dealing with the tenancy agreements of the imperial states in Rome, North Africa. And like I said earlier, it don't matter where they at. If it Moors there, in North Africa to them. So North America is North Africa to them because they gotta deal with us. So they deal with the same old Roman codexes, lex manciniana. Right? That's why they call you African American. In fact, because they're Romans, they only know Moors as that. And they set these up. Wherever you see these, so they dealing with a Roman province on your land. And all the laws and codes that come with it. So we see titles like Shechem on the Native Americans in the northeastern part of North America. We see even those terms, they ain't new. Shechem in the ancient tongue. King of Shechem. And we see earlier the Moors who were fighting him named Abu Malik, same as this King of Shechem. So they ain't even been that far way back from us, and we still ain't know who we been. Like what happened the late 1500s in that event with Abu Malik. And he just been using the same language. Claiming the inherited right to rule. And that just come by you knowing your history, knowing who you was. You see Shechem, to become powerful, to have or gain control. Going all the way back to the ancient Egypt. So let's start right here. When we get back, we're going to show you what the fairs and these different sciences on this. And peace till next time. That's the end, part 4 of Carthago America. Peace. Islam.